My name is Elise Sacchetti, also known as Tiny Doom on the Ladies of Comicazi.
And we're here to ask questions of Caitlin Kittredge. She's the author of several series, including Nocturne City, Black London, The Iron Codex, and many other novels. She's also the writer of Coffin Hill from Vertigo. I'm speaking really well today. And most recently, she's the writer of Lucas Strand. Stan. Failing already, everyone. So, Elise, do you want to start?
Sure. So I've read a couple different works that you've done in some of the comics, including Lucas Strand, and also one of your novels, Black Dog. And I've noticed that your stories are very character-driven. So I thought you could tell us a little bit about what your character inspirations are, sort of who and what helps you sort of put your characters together.
I get character inspiration, like traits and stuff from lots of places. I'm kind of like an inveterate, creepy people watcher, so I like observe people, I listen to conversations, like when I'm just out and about. Get a lot of great ideas from that. As far as like how I create protagonists for my stuff, I usually kind of start to form my stories with a theme or a situation, and then ask myself like what kind of person would be best suited to illustrate this theme or like, inhabit the situation, and they just kind of spring organically from there, and it sounds incredibly pretentious. Now that I'm saying it out loud, but for real, that's generally where it comes from. It's not like a lightning bolt process, and not one of those people who's like, my characters just speak to me and they spring from me fully formed.
And what are your favorite types of characters to write?
Broken, effed up people. So. In case you couldn't tell from all my work.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think a lot of people like reading about broken and effed up people, so that works out well. Similarly, so I've read a few things as well. I read Coffin Hill, I read Lucas Strand, which I can now say correctly, and I'm actually in the middle of the first Black London book. So
thank you.
We wanted to be prepared, and I'm really enjoying everything that I've read, and we'll talk about Lucas Strand a little bit more in a bit. But so the thing I noticed is you're locally based, and so there are some references to local things in Coffin Hill, and then Black London, of course, is set in London. You'll be unsurprised to learn. So, how much does setting influence the story choices that you make?
There's a really great reciprocal relationship between setting and story, because your story informs your setting, and then as you research your setting and delve more into it, it starts to inform your story, because you always come across things that you didn't plan on, like the history, the geography, like the location, types of people that are there in the real world, and you always end up getting like greater detail, like greater depth, like greater, thematic implications for your stories, like based on their location. Like location is super important for Coffin Hill, because she lives in this rotting, decaying mansion that's kind of this presence in and of itself, and the town of Coffin Hill is very much a character, and there's a bunch of flashbacks that are set in Boston, so that was fun for me, because I'm a semi-local. I grew up about an hour outside of the city, so I was excited to get to go back to some of my old stomping grounds and throw them into a story about magic and serial killers and demons. So
it's a fun read if you haven't.
I'm encouraging tourism in a big way.
Sure. Or people avoiding places.
Let's see. I'm trying to see what direction we want to go. Well, since we've talked a little bit about that, you've done both novels and comic books. Talk a little bit about sort of how the writing process differs from doing these two different mediums.
People ask me this question all the time, and I never have a good answer, because it's really just the obvious differences. Like one is prose, one is script. There's a lot of back end work in comic scripts. Like there's a lot of figuring out how pages are going to be laid out, and figuring out like how much story you can fit into this one issue, and like where things are going to cut off, and like and all this like extremely technical stuff that doesn't so much happen with a novel. I mean, you have to think about structure a little bit and not have it drag on and lulls and lags and all that. But you can pretty much with the first draft, you just kind of go, just kind of type out whatever's in your brain. And comics are much more compacted, and they're just kind of like narrowed down to like the most essential elements of the story, which is like dialogue and setting. But I find that it's made me like so incredibly better approach to having to be that like selective and that compacted in my writing. Like it's just thrown all of my like excessive flowery tendencies if I ever had any. It's just like thrown completely out the window. So my book editor at HarperCollins is super happy that people have to go through like red lines and pages being like, we don't need this. We don't need this. I'm just like, wow, your drafts are really clean and streamlined. Well, thank you, comics. Finally teaching me how to write novels.
It's always good when your side jobs end up informing your main job. So with that said, do you ever get writer's block, or do you get stuck with a story, and what do you do to kind of work through that process?
I'm notorious for realizing halfway through something that I've messed it up and I have to start over. So that's how I combat it. I just start over. And then I can get really behind on deadlines, and I have to explain, you can't have the script today, even though it's not our deadline to get it to the artist, because I realized it sucks and I have to start over. So, yeah.
Does that get anything easier over time?
No, I always just feel like I always just like spiral into this like, writer's depression when that happens. But then I eat some chocolate and pick myself up and literally start over again. But yeah, it tends to happen more with scripts than it does with novels. I will say I've never had to like chuck out hundreds of novel pages, fortunately, like knock on wood. But yeah, like at least a dozen times I had to just chuck what I've written in a script like halfway through and be like, not working. And there's, because like I said before, it is so like compacted, the focus is so narrow that if you mess up one thing, there's a ripple effect back through everything you've written, and it's easier to start over. So yeah, don't do that if you're trying to be a writer. That's a better way to deal with that.
So the tips were rewrites and chocolate. So don't rewrite, do use chocolate.
Yes. Yes.
So we talk a little bit about Lucas Stan.
Let's.
Okay,
Yes, I want to
let's
talk
do
about
it.
that.
Awesome. So in Lucas Stan, you're collaborating with another writer who is Kurt Sutter. Some people might recognize that name from Sons of Anarchy if you've watched that show, which is really great. So tell us a little bit about the process of collaborating with another writer.
I like collaborating with other writers and with artists. That's great. With Kurt Sutter specifically, when the editor on the book was like, hey, we've got this comic project, they need somebody to kind of work on scripting duties and story duties, and she was like, oh, it's like Kurt Sutter, like, do you know his show, Sons of Anarchy? And I was like, I literally had one of those moments, yeah, it's a little bit surreal, but he's been great. He's really super easy to work with and communicate with, and he's been very generous in that he handed me the story document, like the story Bible, and like the pitch that he'd originally pitched to Boom, and was like, hey, like, what do you have to contribute to this? What do you want to add? Like, what's your stamp on this? It's been great so far. Like, I sound like I'm kissing his butt, but I'm really not. It's just been an awesome experience. Like, neither of us seem to be like particularly like, rigid or control freaks. So I think us both being kind of laid back about the process on this project has been really helpful, because we can just kind of toss things back and forth to our editor, and nobody has had any sort of meltdown over like something being included or not included or anything like that. So yeah. Yeah.
And it seems like the story is very much in your wheelhouse in terms of some of your previous work.
Yeah, it's strange because I did Coffin Hill, which is very much like pure sort of classic, like there's a looming evil in the woods, ghosts, murderers' old houses kind of horror story, like very Stephen King-ish. And then Lucas Stan is kind of that, but on steroids. Like there's also this like crazy like action movie like revenge saga component to it, and there's like a lot more explosions, like 200% more explosions. But it's been great. It's the first time I've written a male POV protagonist, which is really fun. It's just been great, and like the horror elements in Lucas Stan are almost kind of secondary. Really, it's like a redemption arc for this guy, and it just happens to be told through the lens of like demons and monsters and time travel and all that good stuff, magic weapons.
So how do you feel? What is different about writing from a male point of view as opposed to your previous characters that are all sort of female point of view? Though I feel like in reading, one of the things actually that I like about your work is that I actually felt like it didn't feel super gendered. Your characters don't feel very gendered, even though they're female characters, but
yeah, and thanks for that, because that's kind of my goal when I'm writing. So like, let's see, we're gonna get the super like academic answer on here. So let's see. There's fundamentally your characters are characters, at least in my opinion, and you're not trying to find a male voice or a female voice. You're just trying to find their voice. And it doesn't matter how it sounds in relation to the rest of the world. It will, in relation to their world, yes, but not in relation to like the world at large. In the context of the world, on the other hand, it is very important because when you are writing, like say you're a woman writing from a man's perspective, like you do have to be aware of, I'm going to sound like, you know, somebody's like, you know, first year gender studies professor, you do have to be aware of the male privilege. You do have to be aware of the gendered aspects of the society that you're writing about. You do have to kind of keep that in the back of your head. Same if you're writing, you know, if you're a woman writing from a woman's perspective, you do have to keep it. And I think that's why some people fall into the trap of saying one or the other is easier. Because when you've lived that experience your whole life, yeah, I mean, you have a more instant go-to of like what this person would be thinking, what the reaction to this person would be in a certain situation, like what are the privileges, what are the disadvantages that they deal with every day. But you can learn the other ones, like you can fake it. and I have had more stepping back and being like, okay, wait, am I coming at this, you know, through my own lens, or am I looking at it through Lucas's lens and he's a guy, and like you could probably not do this, just, you know, or maybe you would, like, but so I've had to have a lot more like sit back and like think moments, and you know, I do know some men, and I talk to them. Like, I'm really just like, I never had to deal with this as a lady person, and so like, what do you do in this situation? But like, you know, I don't know, questions about shaving, so I don't know. That kind of stuff. But yeah, like really at base, like I really firmly believe that your characters are characters. They're not male characters or female characters. And like you're just looking for their voice. And if you do that and find their authentic voice, like you're probably not going to screw it up too much. Whereas if you're trying to check some box or you know, conversely not check some box to prove a point, then you're just going to end up kind of, things are going to fall apart.
Yeah. And that's what, so we were talking about this question a little bit last night, and that was one of the things we said, that while they feel like they could be either, it doesn't feel at all like they're, well, I'm proving a point and this is a strong female character.
Right.
All capital letters. So, kudos, you're doing it well.
I also think that this leads well to a question. As I mentioned, we're with the ladies of Comicazi, which is a blog that four of us write, and we talk about lots of different things related to comics and pop culture. And we have a kick-ass fictional ladies feature where we highlight some of our favorite fictional ladies and explain why they kick ass. So who would you pick as one of either your own character or someone else's?
Oh wow. I'm gonna be a super self-serving egotist here and say like I would definitely I really like writing like strong women, like actually strong women, because I've been fortunate to have a lot of strong women in my life, and I like paying tribute to that type of person. And I like also demonstrating that like you can be a lot of different qualities that make a strong woman. But I love, and just she's up here, so I'm gonna say I love Eve. She is the most broken, messed up, traumatized, off the wall character that I've ever written. But she, like to come through that and still like, you know, be sort of kind of mostly sane and like up and getting out of bed every day and functioning. Like she's so resilient, and I didn't even really plan it that way. Like somebody pointed it out to me when they were reading the comic. They were like, "Wow, like she is super resilient, even though she's totally messed up. Like she's still here and she's still standing." I was like, "Okay, yeah, you know, I'll take it." So yeah, I would think Eve is definitely probably the most like actually kick-ass one that I've written. I've certainly written with female characters that are more like physically, you know, dominant than her. I've written ones that are definitely mentally more together than her. Have less of a drinking problem. But yeah, she's one of my favorites, and she's definitely, I think, the strongest if you're just taking into account everything that goes on in these books.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think that's really valid.
So you've had a chance to do these two different types of medium in your writing, but is there something else that you'd like to do that you're sort of either waiting for the opportunity or working up to the?
I kind of broke into comics as an indie. Like my first two big projects were like indie creator-owned projects. It was Coffin Hell and this comic Doom Image that's coming out next month. And I just started doing work for hire with Lucas Stand, and like I'm actually kind of love it, and like I would be interested to try like different properties, like you know, maybe like a superhero property or something, and kind of push myself because like I love superhero comics, like reading them, but they are so not in my wheelhouse as a writer. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do there, and that scares me a little bit, and I like that, so I would like to kind of branch out into something maybe that I wouldn't necessarily have just picked to do by myself, but like I've gotten a couple of work for hire invitations where at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Then I was like, what are you doing? This is a great opportunity. Just say yes, figure it out. So that's been fun. So no superheroes yet, but
So then I have to ask the obvious question, which is the favorite superhero.
oh, come on.
I know, it's so annoying.
That is, I'm just gonna let it. Oh, you ruined it. No, I'm kidding. I am a big, I don't know, I'm just a big, like, I really love what, like, Marvel's done with, like, the MCU movies, where they just, like, streamlined this team and, like, really focused, like, on the interpersonal relationships, but not in a soap opera way. And I really like super teams. Like, I'm always more of a fan of the dynamic of how the characters interplay with each other, and, like, they can go fight, like, Thanos or whatever, I don't care. That's fine. Fun. You know, blow a couple spaceships up, come back, do more character stuff. So maybe this is why I haven't gotten invited to write a superhero.
I feel like a lot of folks are moving in that direction.
Yeah. Like you know, if you want like House of Cards with the Avengers, like call me.
I would totally read that.
Yeah, I
will watch it or whatever. Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna say like I don't have a favorite like individual superhero because that's an impossible question. But yeah, I love like super teams, like any kind of super team, even if they're dysfunctional. Like I love like the old cracktastic Justice League comics from the 70s as much as I love the brand new like modern like you know movie type Adventures comics. So it's fun for me no matter what. I kind of came of age around the time when like the X-Men comics were huge, like in the mid to late 90s. So that was a big like the first couple comics I picked up, and I was like, what the hell is going on? I have to read more. I don't understand any of this because it's part like you know 6 of 27. That's how they rolled back then. But it was great. I was super hooked on that. I think because of that being my first real comic book experience.
So in terms of collaborating, do you have like a dream collaborator? You can take it like someone who you could collaborate with, or you know someone who's maybe like doesn't exist or is dead, or you could do your dream real and like your dream fictional collaborator.
Oh man, I think dream real is a really dangerous game to play with yourself because when you then there's a chance you could actually get to work with that person and they could turn out to be nothing like you expected. I try really, really hard not to build or sublimate my expectations for working with different artists and writers. Like when I went into Lucas Stand, like I had no idea what it was going to be like to work with Kurt Sutter. Like I don't know, you know, is he gonna hate everything I send him? Is demand a bunch of rewrites? Which okay, fair enough. It's like at basis, this is the project he created. Like, is he going to be totally disinterested? But no, he's great. Like, I'm spoiled, I think, in that area because he's been so, like, a true collaborator. But, like, and I've been really lucky with my artists, too. But I never, like, expect things to go swimmingly or expect to have to, like, look over their shoulder and be like, no, every time. And I like to think that me being so relaxed just helps things, like, go smoothly. So I'm going to stay like that and not answer the real life question.
That's cool, fair.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say whoever comes into my orbit next as a collaborator, awesome. I look forward to working with them, unless they're a jerk, in which case I will probably, you know, not invite them to any of my parties after the comic's done. Fictional, I don't know, or, you know, dead or whatever. Like, I always thought it would be fun to, like, work with somebody, like, really nuts, like Hunter S. Thompson or something. Somebody from history who was known for being, like, a complete maniac. I don't know, like Lord Byron or something like that. I don't know. I would just... Like, if you could pick anyone, like, why wouldn't you go balls to the walls crazy? You know, why would you pick somebody safe, like, you know, Charles Dickens or something? Like, just, no. Yeah, so somebody nuts. Somebody who, you know, went crazy from syphilis or something. At least
Yeah.
Oh. So do you want to continue with our questions? Should we turn it over to the audience to see if they have any questions?
Yeah, we can see if there's any questions in the audience, and then if not, we can we have a couple of like wackier questions that we could ask too, but if people have questions.
Yeah.
Out of all the work you've done so far, what do you consider your most personal work? Or have you even done that yet?
Oh, I think I can probably always get more personal because, I'm guilty of minding my own psyche a lot for most of my stories. Not to harp on Coffin Hill, that one is pretty personal, just in terms of the stuff that the main character goes through in her like familial relationships and stuff. It's sometimes my family would say kind of uncomfortably autobiographical, but I don't care because it's my comic and they don't have to read it. But yeah, that would be probably Coffin Hill so far. But
Any other questions? That was a great question.
that was your answer.
And do you find it hard when you're dealing with sales figures to tell a personal story?
I mean, you always worry about that stuff. Like anyone who says they don't worry about that is lying. If they work in this industry, I'm sorry, they just are. But you kind of have to balance it, like with what you feel you could do to serve like your reading public and bump up your sales figures without totally like sacrificing the core of your story. And I've definitely made compromises that I was not 100% sure about when I made them on books that I've worked on, and usually worked out okay. Usually the editor making the request was right, and in a few memorable occasions not, but I'm not going to badmouth anybody. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm telling a good story. I'm telling the best story I can. Hopefully the sales numbers will reflect that. And so far, so good. Like, people respond to good stories, and I think mine are okay. At least I haven't gotten any hate mail. So, I mean, I don't know. Cool. Yeah.
All right. So if there are no other audience questions, should we ask like a really crazy question?
Yeah.
You want to pick one as well?
You start, and then I'll pick one that you didn't pick.
Okay. Let's see.
So, if you had to choose between being turned into a werewolf or into a vampire, which would you choose?
Vampire.
Why?
Yeah.
Right at the gate.
You can live forever, and you don't have to like save your life every 6 hours. So obviously, werewolves are awesome. Don't get me wrong. I like werewolves more than I like vampires. But if I had to be one, definitely be a vampire.
I like the nuance of
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. And you're making me think about new things in terms of like shaving. Yeah.
face shaving test.
Let's see. So we talked a little bit about this. We warned you a little bit about this before we started. That on our blog we have an advice column where the questions are answered by two velociraptors.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions that you would like to have answered by two velociraptors? Because we could arrange that for you.
Oh
They
gosh.
have a focus on fashion, but they don't only answer fashion.
Yeah.
So, Velociraptors, what are your thoughts on White After Labor Day? I have to know.
Oh, this is good. Okay, that's important. We'll definitely share this.
Yes, please tell me because I don't know what I should be thinking. So I'm genuinely asking, not for a friend, for me.
Yeah.
A friend.
I think you're going to have a column soon,
Okay.
so we now have another question.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Let's see.
I'm interested to know what they think on that too.
They have opinions.
They do.
Strong opinions.
And then, is there a fun fact you'd like to share with everyone?
I'm partially double jointed, my elbows and my wrists. And one time I super badly dislocated my wrist because I'm double jointed, and so I'm not going to do that for you guys. And unfortunately, it's not in any of the cool joints. Like I can't like dislocate my shoulder like lethal weapon and get out of the
I was gonna say,
jacket.
can you escape from things? Or
I
like,
know that would be
Yeah.
awesome. Like handcuffs kind of like I can turn my elbows around and pull my hands if they're behind my back, and then also not demonstrate that for you
Yeah,
either because
that's
I'll end up
cool.
falling
Yeah.
over. I'm not very graceful. But yeah, that's my weird go-to is weird elbows. So, and because I'm literally the most awkward person on earth, that's another fun fact for you all.
Well, I don't think we've seen that today at all. All right.
I think for one last question,
Sure, absolutely.
would you like to share an item from your bucket list? Do you have an item from your bucket list item?
I don't believe in bucket lists. I think they just put pressure
Yeah, I
on
don't have
people.
one either.
And things get weird. So no, plenty of stuff I'd like to do. But no bucket list. And nobody likes thinking about their own mortality, guys.
I feel
Exactly the same way.
And this on a
Yeah, I don't have all right, good. Yeah, actually, now I feel better. 'Cause I don't really have a bucket list either.
No,
Whatever.
Just do stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't
You want to
think
do it?
about it and tying it into your
Yeah.
death. Just
Yeah.
do a
if
thing.
you really want to do something, you'll just get off your ass and you'll do it. That's my thought. And if I'm not getting off my ass, then clearly it wasn't really that important. Doesn't need to be on a list.
Yeah. There's your motivational moment of zen for today.
There you go.
Let's
Get off your ass.
All right, well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
This is fun.
So check out Lucas Stand, check out Coffin Hill, and if you have any additional questions or would like Caitlin to sign things, she'll be good for a bit.
I will.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. I'm super excited to write about the choreographers that come right after Labor Day because it like opens up such a good.
That was just like the crazy thing for job.
No, that's great.
I was like, oh, good. That's what that
Yeah, but they focus on fashion and business is like really what they focus on.
I mean, you can combine those two. Like, Blake got that. Does a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, it's true.
You can work it.
Not a neat dress.
Or like white in terms of make it bad or like whatever you prefer. White.
Okay.
We'll get out your ways.
Yeah. And I'm not sure of the couple video is super long. So it's just super good. Just hang around just a little bit.
Okay.
Talk with folks, and then I'll come find you for the thing.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. That was really fun.
Okay, good. I'm like, it wasn't too painful.
No, it was way less lame than I was thinking. So,
Well, that's really good because also I want to talk about quick game, please, huh?
Yeah.
So we are trying to put together our own little convention on September 17th. Right in there.
oh, it's the day before my. I will probably definitely be here. I mean, yeah, I'd love to.
So,
Awesome.
you guys and then we'll be in touch because
Please
maybe we could do a similar thing here.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Mr. Physical, like coping with my siblings. I think I'm a person, so I'm trying to be really funny and mean up here.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was that mean.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel
I can be meaner. I was dialing it back.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I felt like my feelings were not.
I realized I was about to badmouth one of my editors when we were talking about that, and I was like, "Oh, you got this because I really don't want to do that. I just tend to run off at the mouth. It's just finding that Gmail. I'm writing it down, and you can also I do check my Instagram and my Twitter like multiple times a day, so please send me a message in there. And you tag me, so I know you know. My Instagram handle.
I did.
Yeah, and I think I followed you on Twitter too, so it'll be just a direct
If
message
I didn't
too.
follow you back, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Because such a morass, like just
Yeah, no worries. I think maybe so that we can also direct message through there.
Yes, that's true.
yeah.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
Cool.
That thing.
Do you need anything for your signing? Your
Jane?
totally can sit with you.
Yeah, I'm going to look back for.
You know, like when you have a really bad sunburn, it's like
Oh, there it
it's
is.
white.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
you know how burnt you are and how long it's really not that I said strand because I had
I know, I'm like, I have your color.
You're
in my head, and then I screwed it up.
Well, it's like, you know, I don't have an opportunity to be in front of situations like camera equipment that much. And in the beginning, it definitely made me a little bit nervous. Even though I'm like, I kind of
figured out a
different
werewolf
types
she's
of
like
interviews, but I kind of interview for my job.
Absolutely.
Like I mean, they're totally different interviews, but I'm like, oh, this is really expensive here. Bye.
and was interviewed at my job yesterday.
With an expensive camera.
Yes.
Look at what you did.
Documentary.
A significant bonus.
Oh,
There we
yay,
go.
thank you. Let's try it. Thank you. I think this is super cool that you guys do this. There needs to be more like lady centered comic book stuff. Actually,
We hope, yeah, I think we're hoping that ladies
You are gonna
will
turn
be, you know, more than once and.
Yeah.
Be interested in it.
And are you going to be at Boston Comic Con?
Probably.
I
Always super busy and super.
Oh, wow. Are you hearing how good your nails still look? Great.
And
That's
then
really
January,
good.
I probably this year, so they,
Oh.
my editor ran the general, the people who want to be green hats. Figure it out. You want it, unfortunately, I found somebody's room.
You argue that it's actually.
That hurt, that's what I told my.
Oh,
Yeah. Heart palpitations, trying to deal with that every year.
Yeah, I went to San Diego now, probably like 12 years ago, before it was that big, and my friend and I were in town for a wedding, and we were like, we don't have anything to do today.
Oh, they
You
said
wanna
it
go to
appeared to
Comic-Con?
be-
You could just like walk in, and so we did. It was awesome, and now it's like, you have to like, you never pretty much, you're not like already have a ticket, you're not ever going to get
Sorry
it.
about that.
Pretty
Oh,
much
good.
like not to go that year. It's
Yeah.
just super, it's
It's
just
Big and scary, even though
I-
I'm
totally
professional.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, maybe you'll get this side, but maybe
Yeah,
just
I'll be,
this side,
I'll
and
just
just
pull
pull
it
it all
right
this
out of
forward.
the way.
Figure out how you want to use it.
Oh, it's not in my way, don't worry about it.
Does